In the bustling city of Lagos, Nigeria, stood a towering building that housed one of the largest companies in West Africa. This was Bright Tech Industries, a multi-billion naira company famous for its innovative clean energy technology and smart home devices. The building itself was a sight to behold, with its gleaming tinted glass, polished shiny floors, and a constant flow of employees dressed in neat uniforms. Behind the impressive facade, however, was a secret known to only one man, the owner of Bright Tech, a young billionaire named David White. At just 33 years old, David was one of Nigeria's youngest and most successful businessmen, yet he was an enigma. He deliberately stayed out of the public eye, never giving interviews or allowing his picture to be taken. The reason for his secrecy was simple. David was tired of fake love. Every woman he had ever met seemed to be more interested in his wealth and status than in him as a person. They were drawn to the fame, the flashy lifestyle, the expensive cars, but not to his heart. He had been used, lied to, and embarrassed by women who pretended to love him, but only wanted to enjoy his money. Driven by a desire for genuine connection, David devised a plan. "I will pretend to be a poor cleaner in my own company," he announced to Henry, his trusted friend and personal assistant. "I want to observe how people treat me when they have no idea who I am. My hope is to find someone who will love me for who I truly am." Henry was taken aback by the idea. "Are you certain about this, boss? You'll be mopping floors and cleaning toilets?" he questioned. David responded with a confident smile. "That's precisely what I need. If a woman can love me at my lowest, then she truly deserves me at my best." The very next morning, David's plan was set into motion. He transformed his appearance to convincingly portray a humble cleaner. He had his stylish haircut trimmed short, donned cheap, oversized clothes, wore simple rubber slippers, and an old, worn cap. He even used light powder to darken his skin slightly and give himself an older look. To complete the disguise, he altered his voice, making it sound rougher and deeper. Gone was Mr. David White, the wealthy CEO. In his place was John, the new cleaner at Bright Tech. When David, disguised as John, arrived at the staff entrance of Bright Tech Industries, he approached the security post with a calm and confident demeanor. One of the guards scrutinized him. "Yes, what do you want?" the guard asked. "I'm the new cleaner," David replied in his altered, rough voice. The guard glanced at the ID card David handed him, then pointed towards the building. "Go inside and report to the janitorial supervisor. First hallway on your left." David gave a slight nod and entered the building. Inside, the hallways were bustling with activity, employees rushing from one department to another. People hurried past David without giving him a second glance. Some briefly looked at him before quickly turning away. No one offered a smile or a greeting. Eventually, he found the janitorial office, knocked on the door, and stepped inside. A woman sitting behind a desk looked up. Her name tag identified her as Mrs. Grace, the janitorial lead. "You're the new cleaner," she stated. "Yes, ma'am. My name is John." She gave a curt nod, not bothering to smile. "Your assigned area is the ground floor, hallways, lobby, and toilets. You'll find the cleaning supplies in the storage room. Get started immediately." "Yes, ma'am," David replied. He made his way to the supply cupboard, gathered a mop, gloves, broom, cleaning liquid, and began his first shift. The work was physically demanding and unpleasant. The toilets were dirty, and the floors were dusty. He tirelessly bent down, scrubbed surfaces, and mopped hallways in silence. His back soon began to ache, and his hands stung from the cleaning solutions. Yet he didn't complain. Day after day, David returned to his cleaning duties. Each morning, he arrived early and diligently performed his tasks while carefully observing the people around him. Some of the workers were polite, but kept their distance. Others were cold, proud, and unkind. Most simply ignored him as if he were invisible. But then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. While cleaning in a corner of the staff cafeteria, David noticed a young woman sitting alone. She was eating plain rice from a simple container. Her shoes appeared worn, and her handbag strap was patched with thread. Despite her humble appearance, she offered water to one of the older cleaners nearby with a gentle smile. This small act of kindness immediately caught David's attention. Her name was Linda, a junior assistant in the IT department. She was known among her colleagues for being quiet, respectful, and hardworking. She avoided gossip and minded her own business. As David walked past her table, she looked up and greeted him with a warm smile. "Good afternoon, sir." David paused, surprised that she had acknowledged him. "You're talking to me?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "I've noticed you cleaning here every day. You work incredibly hard." He smiled. "Thank you. That's very kind of you." She nodded gently. "May God bless your hands." "Amen," David responded. "And may he bless yours too." That brief interaction stayed with David throughout the day. It was the first time anyone had shown him genuine respect since he started his undercover mission. Later that evening, David sat in his quiet apartment, reflecting on the day's events. His assistant, Henry, arrived with food and a cheerful grin. "How was your shift today?" Henry asked. David gave a tired smile. "Tough as usual, but something remarkable happened." Henry raised an eyebrow. "Oh, what was it?" "I met someone. Her name is Linda. She looked me in the eye. She smiled. She spoke to me with respect. Do you think she's genuine?" David asked, his tone thoughtful. Henry considered this. David nodded slowly. "I'm not sure yet, but I intend to find out. If she is, then her life will never be the same." The next morning, David returned to Bright Tech with a renewed sense of curiosity. He quietly went about his cleaning routine, but he paid close attention to everything happening around the IT department. He wanted to learn more about Linda, not just how she treated him, but how she lived, how she worked, and how she treated others when she thought no one was watching. By mid-morning, Linda walked past the hallway while engaged in a soft conversation with a colleague. David paused his cleaning, pretending to dust a nearby surface, just to observe her. She didn't notice him. Her steps were light and gentle, her tone calm. She didn't seem to be trying to impress anyone. She appeared to be someone who had experienced hardship but had learned to remain strong. At lunchtime, he saw her again in the cafeteria. She had brought food from home, plain jollof rice, neatly packed in a small container. She sat alone in a quiet corner and took out a small bottle of water from her bag. One of the office messengers walked past her table, looking tired and sweaty. Without hesitation, Linda called him over and offered him half of her rice. "Take it," she said kindly. "I have enough." David watched from a distance, his admiration growing. The act confirmed what he had sensed the day before. Linda was different. He finished his cleaning tasks early and returned to the janitorial office to sign out. As he was leaving the building, he noticed Linda also heading out. He decided to follow her discreetly, keeping a safe distance so she wouldn't notice. She didn't take a car or a bike, she walked. Her pace was steady, her steps light. David followed her carefully for about 20 minutes as she walked through the city streets before reaching a quiet neighborhood filled with older apartment buildings. She entered a 2-story building that looked worn but tidy. David stood across the road, observing the building. "So, that's where she lives," he said to himself. "She walks to work every day. No car, no complaints." He remained there for a while, deep in thought. It was clear to him that Linda wasn't pretending to be someone she wasn't. She wasn't putting on a show for anyone. She was genuinely humble and sincere. That evening, David met with Henry again. "I followed her today," he revealed. Henry's eyes widened with curiosity. "You followed her? What did you find out?" "She lives in a small, simple apartment block. She walks all the way to work, every day. No public transport," David explained. "And she even gave away half of her lunch today." Henry whistled softly. "Wow, that's quite rare. I'm going to do something to help her, but discreetly." "She mustn't suspect anything yet," David declared. "What do you have in mind?" Henry asked. David leaned forward, his expression determined. "First, I want to ensure she never goes to bed hungry again. Find out who her landlord is. I want to pay 6 months' rent anonymously." Henry nodded slowly. "Consider it done." David smiled. "Also, find out what her educational background is. I want to understand why she's still in a junior position in IT. The following morning, Linda walked into her apartment complex and was surprised to see her landlord waiting outside with a broad smile. "Good morning, sir," she greeted him. "Linda, good morning, my dear," he replied. "I was just about to call you." She looked confused. "Is everything all right?" "Perfectly fine, actually," the landlord said. "Someone just paid 6 months of your rent." Linda's eyes widened in disbelief. "Sorry, who paid it?" The landlord shrugged. "They didn't leave a name. They wanted to remain anonymous. They simply told me to inform you that your debt is cleared and your rent is covered until next year." Linda stood frozen for a few seconds, trying to process the unexpected news. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I counted the money myself. You should thank God. Someone out there is looking out for you." She nodded slowly, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, thank you, God." As she walked to work that day, her heart felt lighter than it had in months. For the first time in a long time, she didn't have the burden of worrying about rent. Yet she couldn't help but wonder who her mysterious benefactor was and why they had helped her. When she arrived at work, she made her way to the back hallway during her break, as she often did. It was there that she encountered David, still disguised as John, the cleaner. She greeted him with a warm smile. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning," he replied. "You won't believe what happened to me today," she said. "Oh, what is it?" he asked, feigning ignorance. "My rent was paid 6 full months. And it was anonymous. The landlord had no idea who did it." David looked genuinely surprised. "Wow, that's incredible. God truly works in mysterious ways." She nodded, her voice filled with emotion. "I just wish I could hug the person who did it and express my gratitude." He offered a gentle smile. "I'm sure they already know how thankful you are. And perhaps one day, you'll have the chance to meet them." She laughed softly. "Maybe." Then she looked up at him, her gaze thoughtful. "You know, you're different from most people here. Most people in this company don't treat cleaners with respect, but you always listen. You always greet me back." David gave a simple shrug. "It costs nothing to be kind." She nodded in agreement. Just then her phone buzzed, and she excused herself politely. David stood still for a moment, watching her walk away. "Linda," he whispered to himself, "you have no idea." From that day forward, David eagerly anticipated each workday. Every morning, he arrived early and began his cleaning duties, but his thoughts were often consumed by Linda. She had become the highlight of his day. He was drawn to her quiet strength and her unwavering kindness. She never looked down on anyone, regardless of their position. Even though her clothes were simple and her lunches were modest, her heart was rich, a quality David could see every time she smiled. One afternoon, after a long morning of mopping the hallways, David retreated to a quiet corner of the staff cafeteria to rest. Linda entered the cafeteria and sat at her usual spot. When she noticed David wiping sweat from his forehead, she approached him. "You haven't eaten," she observed. David shook his head gently. "Not yet." Without asking any questions, she opened her small food container and offered it to him. "Please eat. I already ate something earlier." David was taken aback by her generosity. "No, I can't take your food." "Please," she insisted with a warm smile. "I want you to have it. I don't have much, but I can share." He gazed at her for a moment, his heart swelling with emotion. Slowly, he accepted the spoon she offered. "Thank you, Linda. You don't know how much this means to me." She sat beside him quietly, watching him eat. "I've noticed how some people treat you," she said softly. "They don't seem to know how to be kind. But I see you working harder than anyone else, and you never complain." David paused, his gaze meeting hers. "You're the only one who truly sees me." "I see more than people realize," she replied with a small laugh. They shared a peaceful silence, both smiling gently. However, not everyone at Bright Tech possessed Linda's kindness. The company's general manager, Mr. Charles, was a proud and boastful man. He always wore expensive suits, carried the latest phones, and carried himself with an air of arrogance. Most of the staff feared him. Some of the women admired him for his wealth and influence. But Linda consistently kept her distance, which only piqued Charles's interest. One day, Charles summoned Linda to his office. "You're a beautiful girl, Linda," he began smoothly. "Thank you, sir," she replied cautiously, unsure of where the conversation was headed. "I've been observing you," he continued. "You're different. You're quiet, you don't beg for attention, and you don't throw yourself at men like the others." Linda remained silent. Charles leaned back in his chair and smiled confidently. "I can offer you a better life, you know. I practically own this company. All the fancy cars outside, all the money that flows through this place, I'm the one behind it." Linda looked at him, confused. "You own Bright Tech?" "Of course," he lied convincingly. "My name might not be on the official documents, but I control everything. The board listens to me, and the staff obeys my orders. If you align yourself with me, your life will change. I'll give you a significant raise, buy you better clothes, and you won't have to struggle anymore." Linda remained calm and composed. "Thank you, sir, but I'm not interested." Charles frowned, his smile fading. "You think I'm lying? You don't believe I can take care of you?" "It's not about belief," she replied gently. "I'm simply not interested." Charles laughed coldly. "So, you prefer to walk to work, wear second-hand clothes, and eat plain food for the rest of your life?" Linda stood up, her voice firm. "It's better than pretending to love someone for their wealth." Linda finished her sentence, her gaze steady and unwavering. She then turned and walked out of Charles's office, leaving him stunned and speechless. Word of Charles's inappropriate behavior and Linda's courageous rejection spread quickly through the office grapevine. Many admired her integrity, while others whispered about the potential consequences of crossing the powerful general manager. David, still in his guise as John, heard the rumors and his anger towards Charles intensified. He admired Linda's strength and her refusal to compromise her values. He knew he had to intervene. The next day, David instructed Henry to expedite the investigation into Charles's activities. The evidence of his misuse of company funds was quickly compiled and presented to David. Without hesitation, David made the decision to fire Charles. The news of Charles's dismissal sent shockwaves through Bright Tech. The once arrogant manager was escorted out of the building by security, leaving behind a trail of bewildered and gossiping employees. David watched the reactions from a distance, his heart heavy with the knowledge of the turmoil he had indirectly caused. He sought out Linda, finding her quietly working at her desk. "Linda," he said gently, his voice still rough from his disguise, "are you all right?" Linda looked up, a faint smile gracing her lips. "Yes, David. I'm relieved, actually. Mr. Charles, he made things difficult." David nodded understandingly. "He won't bother you anymore." In the days that followed, the atmosphere at Bright Tech began to shift. Without Charles's overbearing presence, a sense of calm and fairness seemed to settle over the workplace. David continued his routine as John. Observing Linda and their interactions grew more comfortable and familiar. He found himself falling deeper in love with her honesty, her resilience, and her genuine goodness. The time for his revelation was drawing near. He had seen enough. He knew Linda's heart was true. One evening, after their usual post-work chat in the quiet hallway, David asked Linda if she would join him for dinner. Linda, who had grown fond of the kind and unassuming cleaner, readily agreed. That night, as Linda waited at the entrance of a modest but charming restaurant, a sleek, expensive car pulled up. The driver's door opened, and David White, the real David White, stepped out. He was dressed in an elegant suit, his hair neatly styled. Linda stared in astonishment, her mind struggling to reconcile the two images. "David?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He smiled, a warm and genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Linda, it's me." He explained everything, his reasons for the disguise, his observations, his growing admiration for her, and finally, his love. Linda listened, her emotions a whirlwind of surprise, confusion, and a dawning understanding. She realized that the kindness and respect she had felt from John were not a facade. They were the true nature of the man standing before her. Over a quiet dinner, they talked for hours, peeling back the layers of pretense and revealing their true selves to each other. Linda confessed that she had grown to care deeply for John, drawn to his gentle spirit and genuine interest in her as a person. The revelation of David's true identity didn't change her feelings. It only added another dimension to the man she had come to love. A few weeks later, David gathered all the employees of Bright Tech in the main hall. He stood on the stage, no longer the disguised cleaner, but the confident CEO. He told them his story, the extraordinary tale of how he had gone undercover and found true love in their midst. He then introduced Linda, who stood beside him, radiating grace and humility. Linda, David announced, his voice filled with emotion, is a woman of incredible integrity and kindness. Her heart is pure, and her spirit is strong. And I have fallen deeply in love with her. He then knelt down on one knee, presenting her with a beautiful diamond ring. Linda, will you marry me? Tears streamed down Linda's face as she whispered, Yes, David. Yes, I will. The hall erupted in applause and cheers, celebrating their unconventional love story. Months later, David and Linda exchanged vows in a beautiful ceremony, surrounded by their loved ones and the employees of Bright Tech who had witnessed the beginning of their extraordinary romance. They embarked on their life together, leading Bright Tech Industries with a shared vision of integrity, compassion, and innovation. Their story became a legend in Lagos, the tale of a billionaire who sought genuine love and found it not in wealth or status, but in the heart of a humble woman who saw him for who he truly was. And they lived happily ever after, their love a testament to the power of sincerity and kindness.